and welcome to the full moon video for the month of February 2023. I'm Lori Barnes. I'm an astrology coach, and I am here to talk to you about the upcoming full moon in Leo. The full moon this month is on Sunday, February the 5th, so this coming up weekend. And the timing of it is in the morning. If you're on the West Coast in the US, it'll be at 10:30 in the morning. If you're on the East Coast in the US, it'll be at 1:30 or 1:29 p.m. And then if you're here in Rome, Italy, where I am, it'll be at 5:42 p.m. on Sunday. And it's at 16 degrees Leo. So full moons are culminations. It's the middle of a moon phase, which is kicked off at the new moon. We're halfway through the phase that started on January 21st with the new moon in Aquarius. And at that new moon, we talked about how it's kind of like breaking out of a pattern, breaking out of a rut. It's that new moon was the first new moon since we had Mars and Mercury move forward out of their retrograde cycles. And so it was a really fresh new beginning, a fresh new moon. And now we're halfway through that cycle with the full moon in Leo. I think it's pretty exciting because the pace is picking up. When we talked at the new moon, the retrogrades had just turned direct. And now we're further along. So when we think about the full moon and the pace of time, it's really picking up speed. We are still in the shadow of both the Mercury retrograde and the Mars retrograde. And that means that both of these planets are moving forward, but they haven't yet got to the degree that they originally went retrograde in. So that's the shadow. They will be concluding the post-shadow part of the retrograde cycle very soon. So Mercury will be out of its shadow on February the 7th. So just, a few days after the full moon. Mars takes longer. It's a longer cycle. So we're looking at the middle of March before Mars will leave its post-retrograde shadow. So we still have a little time there. And during these post-retrograde shadow periods of time is a great time to wrap up what came up during the retrograde. So for the Mars retrograde, you can think back to late October, and for the Mercury retrograde, going back to December. And if you want to know more about either one of those cycles, I have blogs on both of them on my website, and I made a video just for the Mars retrograde. So you're welcome to check those out if you want to learn more about those particular retrogrades. I bring them up though for the full moon because we are in the post shadow, and there are these after effects of the retrogrades that are still active and at play as we're moving into the full moon cycle. And as we continue through this entire phase of the moon that started with the new moon in Aquarius. And this moon phase will take us up until February 19th or 20th, depending on where you live, when we'll have our next new moon, and that will be in the sign of Pisces. So the pace of time right now is really what I'm talking about, especially in regard to the retrogrades, that both Mars and Mercury are moving forward. They're picking up speed. Things are moving along. And you can be wrapping up any of that reflective, refining, realigning type of work that you've been doing, especially as it relates to the end of the year and the very beginning of the year. And in the new moon video that was 2 weeks ago, I talked about how I really thought that new moon worked well with kicking off the new year, and that I was treating it personally really like the beginning of the year. So instead of January 1st, I was really looking more like at January 21st, that new moon is like, oh, this is the new year, because there's looking forward type of energy happening. And the pace of time now that we're coming to the full moon, as we're culminating, as we have more moonlight and we're more just full of light, looking at the metaphors, there's the most amount of light on the moon that comes from the sun. There's light in the middle of the night. We can see better when there's a full moon. There's the culmination. There's moving projects along, bringing things to conclusion, or taking things to the next step. All these things are really ways to think about the full moon and how you want to go about utilizing the energy and moving with the flow of the moon cycles. Okay, let's talk more about this particular full moon. So we know that the full moon is in the sign of Leo, which means the moon is traveling through the sign of Leo and the sun is traveling through the sign of Aquarius. A full moon is always a pair of signs that are across from each other. And Leo and Aquarius are across from each other in the zodiac, and they're two ends of the same line, you could say. They are complementary, they can be opposite in some ways, and they can share some energetic types of descriptions, you could say. So with Leo, it's about individual expression, and Aquarius is about looking at the humanity as a whole. So we have these two signs that are delivering the full moon message this month. Leo is about what you're proud of, about how you hold your head high, what you are passionate about, what you, or where you feel very creative. And creativity is an individualized thing. What one person feels is their creativity, it can be very different from another person. Of course, artists always fall under that, the musicians, the painters, the sculptors, the writers. There are many different ways that your creativity can be expressed. Maybe you express your creativity through what you grow in your garden, or how you decorate a house, or how you're able to go up and do presentations, or how you make beautiful presentations at work, or you're very creative in how you solve problems, how you logistically figure out how to get things done. Maybe you're really brilliant at making things more efficient. So there's many ways that creativity can be expressed, and that's what Leo is about. It's a fixed sign, just like Aquarius. So there's some stubbornness that's built into both of these signs. And then when we look at the other side at Aquarius, Aquarius is about a cause, or humanitarian causes. It's a sign known for being innovative and wanting independence, moving along to their own drumbeat. Aquarians typically come up with brilliant solutions or ideas, things that hadn't been thought of before, and also known for being reform oriented. And if I haven't said it already, innovative solutions. It's an air sign, not a water sign. Sometimes people think Aquarius, it's water, but it's actually an air sign. So there's a social element to the sign of Aquarius. Now, I just mentioned a minute ago that both of these signs are fixed signs. And that means that there is some stubbornness that can be highlighted during this full moon, and especially as it relates to things that may need to be broken up a little or shaken up a little. Is like if you were walking along the same line, you kind of get stuck, stubborn about, no, I'm going to stay the status quo. I'm going to, follow this, and I'm not going to detour from my path. But then what happens is you end up walking yourself into a groove, and then it gets deeper, and then you're a rut, and then eventually you get kind of stuck in this deep rut, and it's hard to get out. Fixed signs can sometimes do that. Now, they're great for staying the course, for keeping routines. And so it's not to say that fixed is good or bad. It's to say that some of the problems that fixed signs can run into is by maintaining the course that they get stuck. And so I think that this full moon, just like the new moon and this entire cycle, is about recognizing where you may have gotten stuck, and it's about moving forward. And we're coming out of the retrograde, so it's like it all works together. And that during the retrogrades, there is like looking back and seeing where you might be stuck, or where you might need to reflect, realign, and refine or reframe. And hopefully you did some of that work. Now we're out of it. This shadow period is about wrapping all that stuff up. The new moon kicked off the new year, and maybe your new goals, and moving forward, the pace of time is speeding up, and now we're coming to this culmination of the full moon. So it's really a time to push your priorities ahead, push your goals ahead, and be especially aware of where you may be a little stuck, or maybe where you are stubbornly not willing to make a change, but yet if you were to open your mind to some different ways of doing things, it could actually benefit you greatly. So that's a look at the full moon and the signs. In terms of all the other things happening at the time of the full moon, that is important to be aware of because there's more than the sun and the moon in the sky. So in order to really understand the Leo full moon, we want to take a look at what else is going on in the sky. So I think that there's a nice mix of planetary influences going on. There's more supportive, flowing types of connections than there are the challenging types. So I'm going to just briefly touch on what's happening. And if you want to know more, I typically write more on this in the blog, so you can go deeper into the blog. The challenging type of energies happening mostly is around where Uranus is. Uranus is in the sign of Taurus. Taurus is another of the fixed signs. And it's at a 90-degree angle, or perpendicular, you could say, to the sun and the moon. And Uranus is a planet that likes to disrupt. It likes to bring unexpected change. And here it is right there, making connections to both the sun and the moon, and hopefully shaking up things in your life that need to be shook up so that you can make changes for the better for yourself. Even if the end result of any kind of shakeup you experience ends up being better, it puts you on a better path, it ends up bringing change that really benefits you, the actual experience of any kind of shakeup can be disorienting and uncomfortable and oftentimes unwanted. So I think it's important to understand that if you find that there's some shakeups that happen to you around the full moon, that even though it may not be pleasant, you may be cursing at it or just trying to wish it away or stubbornly holding on to, moving in the same way, same direction that you always have, that you would really benefit from taking a step back and evaluating the situation and embracing some sort of change, moving with the energy. What is it saying? What direction is it pointing you in? And how can you accept that maybe, instead of stubbornly trying to continue to move forward in the same way, that there are some alternate paths that could be better for you. As you know, without looking at each of your individual charts, it's very difficult how to say how that might show up in your life. But if you do know your chart, if you follow astrology more deeply and you happen to have your chart and you know where Taurus and Leo and Aquarius fall in your chart, the houses that they rule in your chart, is going to give you a whole lot more information about what topics, people, or events in your life may be activated or will be activated at the time of this full moon. And my belief is that we have both fate and free will. So even though some things may happen that are outside of your control, and you could say that they're fated, you still have the free will for how you are going to respond, what actions you're going to take, and how internally you are going to speak to yourself, like what kind of language you're going to use about it. And I highly recommend that you reframe any of your thoughts to position them in a way that's encouraging or willing to accept a challenge and is about creative problem solving, solution finding, instead of the negative type of thinking that, woe is me, all is bad, nothing good is happening, only bad things are happening. And yes, they may be bad. So I definitely don't want to invalidate a very difficult experience. What I would like to do is help you find ways to move through whatever experience you're having and to help improve your outcome. In terms of the more beneficial or supportive type energies, there's quite a few different things happening that I think are supportive for helping you move through any changes or unexpected happenings that you experience around this full moon. And so I'm just going to quickly name off what they are. We have Mars in Gemini, and Gemini is an air sign. So it's going to mix nicely with both Aquarius and Leo. Aquarius is a fellow air element, and air signs and fire signs tend to get along very well. And between them, there's the moon having what we call a sextile relationship with Mars, and then it has a trine relationship with Jupiter. They're both the trines and the sextiles are supportive, flowing energies, and they're very active. And with the sun, there's the Sun trine Mars and sextile Jupiter. So these are really nice, supportive, activating energies that are going to be social in nature because air signs are social. And then with fire, there's just like this dynamic energy, this like, I can do it, I'm going to get this done, or really creative in your problem solving, and just like really like having that motivation and drive to go out and move forward and get something done. There is also Venus is in a pleasant relationship with Uranus. So you have Uranus that's kind of like challenging the sun and the moon to change or to bring some sort of disruption to the status quo. And then Venus is there sending a really nice vibe to Uranus. So it's like a softening of this. So maybe instead of like this hard landing, it's more like a soft landing of the energetic vibes that Uranus is sending to the sun and the moon. We have Mercury with Pluto. This is different because these two planets are in the Earth sign Capricorn. And, Mercury is now it's in its post shadow phase in the sign of Capricorn. And so there can be some very deep and intense thought processes going on, especially if you have a lot of Capricorn in your chart, or if you have Earth signs in your chart, or even water signs, and you were anything in the later degrees of Earth and water signs can tap into this like depth of thinking. There's a trine with Uranus. So again, another helpful, supportive, flowing type of energy going into Uranus. And Uranus is the kind of pattern breaking energy that is very active with this full moon. The last one that I wanted to point out is that the Venus and Mars have a relationship at the full moon, and it's probably the more potent one because it's exact. So just like the full moon is when the sun and the moon are in the exact degree in opposite signs, we have Venus and Mars in the exact degree in a square relationship. So that's a 90-degree angle. And you could say that it's a challenging energy. And you could also say that because it's Venus and Mars, it's the metaphorical male-female energy coming together and challenging each other, but in a way that is maybe enticing and passionate and growth-oriented. So it could be quite nice for the time leading up to Valentine's Day, because Valentine's Day is just around the corner, and Venus and Mars are the lovers, right? And in respect to the different ways that people identify with their gender, there's the masculine and feminine types of energies. We have both of these energies in all of us. We all have the receptive and the active energies, right? Or the yin yang, you could say. So if Venus and Mars are the planets that mostly represent that in terms of how we are relating to other people, our close relationships, our personal relationships, even our work relationships, how we relate is very much related to the planet Venus, and how we take action and go about and do things in life is Mars. So these two planets are in this square, and they are in the exact same degree. Mars is at 11 degrees Gemini, and Venus is 11 degrees Pisces. So we have these energies coming together and creating this spark, kind of like this dynamic energy of how we are relating with people. And for you, hopefully it activates some fun and some passion and some good discussions and some learning opportunities for people who are between people who are receptive and more active. Yeah, I think that it's a nice setup for the upcoming Valentine's Day. I have a few inspirational quotes for you for the Leo full moon. The first one is from Diane McLaurin, and she says, "Nature has given us all the pieces required to achieve exceptional wellness and health, but has left it up to us to put these pieces together." So that relates to the fate, free will concept. Everyone has their own perception or definition of what that means in your life. And I think that this quote really helps describe that fate and free will relationship. The next one is from Tori Amos, who happens to be one of my favorite, all-time favorite musicians. She's an amazing piano player, singer, songwriter. And so when I saw this, I was like, oh, I have to quote Tori because I just love her. She says, there's room for everybody on the planet to be creative and conscious if you are your own person. Think Leo, Leo energy. Oh, and I believe Tori Amos is a Leo. And then she goes on to say, if you're trying to be like somebody else, then there isn't room for everyone to be creative if you're trying to mimic someone else. So what she's saying, there's room for everyone to express your own individuality, but there's not so much room if you want to imitate someone else. It's about your own personal creativity and how you individually express it. That is Leo, and this is a Leo full moon. So please go out and be your own individual creative self. All right, the last one is from Emily Dickinson. And when I saw this quote, I was like, oh my gosh, how have I not heard this before? This is such an amazing quote. She says, I dwell in possibility. I just love that. So I'm going to have to like print that up and stick it on my wall somewhere. All right, those are your quotes for the Leo full moon. Moving on to the full moon ritual. So for your full moon ritual, the Leo full moon this Sunday, I have some ideas for you. And one thing that I usually mention every video is that when it comes to doing rituals for the full or the new moon, I think for the full moon, you can do it before, during, after the full moon. Any of those times are fine because you're within the same cycle and you're at the peak or the culmination. But when you do new moon rituals, I always recommend to wait until after the new moon cycle kicks off, because if you do it before, you're actually in the previous moon cycle and you're not really in the actual phase that you're working on. So for the full moon, you can do your ritual starting now when you're listening to this video. If it's a Friday, Saturday, that's fine. You have the whole weekend. The full moon is Sunday, and even next week in the beginning of the week. And, you know, it's when you're looking up and you see that the moon is mostly full, you see the most amount of light. So for your ritual, I would set intentions around your creative, your own personal creativity, setting your creativity free, allowing yourself to be creative and in the most individual way possible, you know, not according to what somebody else thinks is creative in you, you know, how someone else thinks you should be creative. You want to really tap into your personal creativity and how you define it. The next thing that I would recommend is, and this involves fire, since Leo is a fire sign, is to think about any obstacles that you're experiencing right now and think about what we talked about earlier in relation to Uranus kind of breaking up things in the Leo and Aquarius signs because they're fixed signs. So, but what kind of obstacles are you facing? Write them down on a piece of paper and then burn that paper. It's like a purification ritual. You're purposely and intentionally burning those obstacles away. It's an expression of your intention that they're burned away, they are purified, they are released so that you are free to move forward. So I would do that. If you can do it with a fire pit outside, that's the best, because then you're combining both air, being outside, and fire, the element of the full moon. But if you aren't able to, it's too cold, it's rainy, it's icky, you know, get a candle going. You may have an indoor fireplace, whatever, it's the most accessible way for you to do your ritual. My next recommendation is to clear your space. So with fire being the element, you could do like sage purification, burn some of the sage. You can get those sage sticks and just kind of walk around and, you know, with your sage stick and let the beautiful smoke that smells so good purify and cleanse your home. So it's a process called smudging. You've probably heard of it. That's SMUDGE, smudge. You can get smudge sticks. You can do smudging. I actually have a book on smudging. It has lots of different ways that you can cleanse and purify your house. You can do that with people, where you take the smudge stick and you kind of go around their whole body. It is smoke though, so I will tell you, if you have asthma or if you don't do well with smoke, just that's not the right thing for you. You would be better off using essential oils. But if the smoke doesn't bother you, then I would highly recommend doing some purification rituals with sage or incense, like sandalwood or frankincense. Okay, the next idea I have for you is to open your windows and clear out the air in your living space. The sun is in Aquarius, just like with the new moon. That was one of my recommendations. I'd say it's a good thing to do at the full moon as well, just to clear the air out, to also symbolically, it's like clearing out space to allow something new to come in. And that would, I think, works really well with this full moon with an air sign and a fire sign. If you do have access to a fire pit outside, or maybe you live near a beach where you can build fire pits, anything like that would be really along the lines of a Leo full moon, bringing the element of fire into your rituals in any way, shape, or form. And if you can, and if the weather allows it, like build your fire pit and dance around your fire pit, dance and be free and sing. And if you have musical instruments, just kind of like let loose, let it go, and just absorb up the vibe and enjoy it. I have actually done that before, and it was so fun. And I'm kind of modest, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that. That's like so not me. And then the next thing you know, everybody's doing it, and then you just start getting into the groove, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. And it like opens something up inside of you. So it's something that is a good idea. If that speaks to you, I'd say go and do that and invite your closest friends that you trust and have a Leo fire burning, dance around the fire kind of party. Now I have some more ideas for you, and this is more for the whole phase. Maybe you don't have time to do that on the actual full moon, or this is beyond the ritual of a Leo full moon. These are other ideas to do during the full moon phase. Leo's a social sign, so I'd say socialize with your friends, and especially the ones who or you feel deeply inside of yourself that they love you for who you are. You don't have to be someone else to fit in. You don't have to hide who you are, because the Leo full moon is about your personal, individual self-expression and your creativity, and you want to be with people who really embrace the true you. So get out there with your friends, but choose the ones who really support your actual creative side. Do creative things. So whatever it is that you like to do, if you like to sing, dance, paint, if you want to learn more about how to design stuff on Canva, whatever it is that is creative for you, engage in more of that as much as you can under the new moon and going up until our new moon phase later in February, especially. You could throw a party, you can invite people over, things like that. Go out and see a show, a musical, a dance production, concert, or a comedy. You can go dancing, go shopping, get your hair done, get a facial, a makeover, any kind of pampering that makes you feel like your inner light is shining out. Remembering that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And so it's not so much about the celebrity type beauty of meeting some sort of beauty standard or perfection, but it's about recognizing the beauty inside of you, and it's perfect just the way it is, and like doing things that help you shine the light on those things that make you feel that you're this perfect, creative, harmonious person. The sign of Leo is also related to kids and creativity. And one of the most incredible things that human beings can create is another human being. So if you have your own mini human being, small human being that's yours, or in any way you consider yours, nieces, nephews, grandchildren, your friends' kids, maybe you work at a school, you work with kids, you just love kids, you work with kids, whatever it is, do things with kids and let your inner kid come out and play. And so if there are no kids around you, or even if there are, go out and play like a kid. Do things that you loved to do when you were a kid. Just have fun, play, play, play. And now I'm going to shift from saying play, play, play to plan some time to work on your 2023 goals. I'm going to have this recurring message for you all through February, all through March, because we are full speed ahead. We have no planets in retrograde. Now, I know we're still finishing up our shadow. So remember, we're pacing up. We're not sprinting, we're gradually picking up the pace. And so you don't want to let too much time go by without paying attention to your goals, because this is going to be one of the fastest, if not the fastest period of time where the pace is really forward momentum moving is right now. And it's going to continue through February and through March. So you definitely don't want to let time get away from you. You want to put energy towards the goals that you want to achieve this year. You may make a big jump in February and March, and then the pace may slow down a bit for you for the rest of the year. I'm not saying it will, because everyone's individual chart is going to have a lot more information on that. But just speaking to the general pace of the planets in the sky, the pace is fast. So definitely take some time to work on your goals. And now is the time to tap into your creativity for how you are going to achieve your goals. And you should have access to a lot of creativity around how to do that, especially if you're thinking about how Uranus is kind of coming in and helping you break up things that may be slowing you down, or that you may be insisting on going down the track in the same way that you always have done. And there could be new, more innovative ways to do things that you haven't thought of. So this is a time to really bring some of that into your life while you're playing and having fun. And then the last thing that I wanted to recommend is to plan a fun date with your significant other. If you have a significant other, it's the time of year where Valentine's Day is coming up. And, this is a time for fun and for play. So make a date, make a romantic date. And if you're single, plan something fun with your friends, and you can go out, and whether or not it's about meeting someone else or just having fun with your own circle of people, it's a time to get together and go out and have fun, and maybe do something creative with your friends. Some essential oil recommendations I have for you for this full moon in Leo. For passion and creativity, and for Valentine's Day, I recommend rose, neroli, jasmine, sandalwood, and lang lang. They're all wonderful. And I always use lang lang and sandalwood together. I just love the way they smell together in my diffuser. So, but any of those would be great choices. Some of them are quite expensive, but if you find them maybe pre-diluted, they're going to be more affordable. And if you get sometimes blends, you find like love or romance blends or passion blends, sometimes they'll already have these oils in them. So you can be on the lookout for that. For creativity, I like frankincense, peppermint. Peppermint is also good for mental clarity, headaches, and concentration. So that's always helpful. And then lavender, which can help open your mind and calm any kind of stress. And then tangerine for your creativity and for joy. It can be kind of like really uplifting. And then the last one is bergamot, because it's like for balance, harmony, it's uplifting, and it's one of my favorite oils. I use bergamot quite often. And that's what I have in my diffuser right now. I have bergamot, peppermint, and lavender mixed together. So that's just one suggestion. I also use bergamot with lime quite often. They go very well together. All right. Well, that is the Leo full moon presentation for you today. I hope to see you back on February 19th or 20th for the Pisces new moon. I'll have a new video out for you on that. In the meantime, please subscribe to my email list if you haven't already, because I will send you the new moon and full moon information directly in your inbox. I also currently have a few openings for astrology coaching. So if you're interested in that, you can learn more on my website, loribarnesastrology.com, where you can also set up a free initial consultation where we can talk about if astrology coaching is a good fit for you. I'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye.